This one's called Frozen. Now, you and I are in New England at a ski resort, and we're watching Mount Holliston, where three friends, Dan Walker, Joe Lynch, and Dan's girlfriend, Parker O'Neill, have come to the mountains for a ski trip. Dan and Joe are childhood best friends who go on a ski trip every year as a tradition in their culture. Most of the time, Joe flirts with a female ski lift operator to get cheaper tickets. But this time, a man stands in her place. The guys make Parker flirt with the operator and get them cheap tickets. While she's at it, Joe complains about Dan bringing his girlfriend to a boys-only trip. It wouldn't be as fun. Dan apologizes, saying that he thought bringing her would be okay because they would get to bond. They finally get on a ski lift and set off to the top of the mountain. On their way, Joe criticizes Parker for smoking too much, making Parker throw an insult back at him. Dan is in the middle of the two trying to handle the situation. All of a sudden, the lift stops working. People riding them complain in frustration. Parker acts calm but is scared of heights. Joe makes fun of her for it while Dan tries to console her. Eventually, the lift continues working. Then they reach the top. While skiing, Dan and Joe are unable to have fun because Parker is slow. She falls down all the time, and every few minutes it annoys Joe even more. At night, they are back from the mountain and are staying in a resort. The boys talk over pizza about the failed trip, and Joe suggests the two of them catch the last lift to the hilltop and ski as they used to before. Parker overhears their conversation and apologizes for ruining their trip. Dan feels bad for her, so he asks her to join them again. Parker wants to stay in the room, saying she doesn't enjoy skiing anyway, but Dan insists. He assumes that the people are the ones that the operator was talking about and stops the lift, unaware that Dan, Joe, and Parker are still on it. At first, when the lift stops, the group thinks it's just a minor inconvenience. Joe yells in frustration, but everyone at the lift station has already left. Moreover, of course, the temperature is dropping by the second, making the group shiver in the cold, despite being warmly dressed. They talk about worse ways they could die to keep them entertained, unknown to what is coming for them. They stay there for a few minutes but start to panic when the lights go out. Now they know that the lift didn't stop because of a malfunction, but someone has stopped it deliberately. They start to yell, hoping someone will hear them. Parker freaks out, saying that no one knows that they're here. But Dan believes that the lift stopped because of some power outage, and they will be rescued soon. The couple begins to argue in a moment of panic. Parker suddenly remembers that it is Sunday, and the ski resort won't open until next Friday. So if no one comes looking for them, they will be stuck for almost a week. The friends tell one another that they will be okay, but panic is visible in their faces. Sometime later, Joe has to pee, but with no other way, he puts the metal bar up and pees off the lift. Parker groans in disgust. Then suddenly it starts to snow. The storm that the operator warned them about hits, adds to the group's trouble. Sometime later, a snowplow drives towards them, making the group wave and yell to get the driver's attention. The driver actually stops, and he stops the vehicle right below the group. They are relieved to be rescued, finally. Oh, yes. But it turns out that man hasn't heard or seen them, and he stops simply because of the snowstorm. He calls his superior, who tells him to come back quickly. So the man turns his vehicle around while the group screams at him to stop. Unfortunately, he cannot hear them because of the storm. They throw their skiing gears at the man, but he doesn't notice them and eventually leaves. Sometime later, Parker takes her glove off to smoke, but it accidentally falls off the lift. Now the only way out for the group is for one of them to jump. Dan volunteers to do it, and believe he will be fine once the ground is covered in snow. Joe tries to stop him, saying that they should wait until the morning, but Dan is very persistent. Parker and Joe both repeatedly insist he quit. However, Dan throws his snowboard to the ground and jumps off the lift. Immediately after he hits the ground, both of his legs are broken. The other two ask him if he's okay. but he only hears mumbling and screaming for a few seconds. Dan is horrified to see his bones through both of his knees. Now there is no way he can make it down the mountain to get help. Parker throws her scarf at him so he can use it to stop the bleeding, but it lands on top of a tree. He asks Joe not to let Parker look down while the animals surround him. Joe holds Parker's face while crying as the creature devours Dan. Sometime later, everything goes silent. The only noise that can be heard is the howling of wolves in the distance. Parker blames Joe for asking Dan to jump earlier. Joe defends himself, claiming that he begged him not to. They get into an argument and start to blame one another for Dan's death. In the end, they hold each other and cry. The night somehow passes as the two fall asleep. Parker wakes up in the morning with her hand around the metal bar which she grabbed when asleep. She tries to remove it, but her hand is frozen, along with the bar. She painfully loosens her grip as the skin on her palm tears off. The two have severe frostbite and cannot survive another day in the lift. Joe suggests he tries getting to the support tower again, but Parker wants them to wait for a few hours and see if someone nicely comes looking for them. A while later, Joe falls asleep and Parker embarrassingly pees on herself while crying. When he wakes up, the two talk about different things in life. Joe tells her how he and Dan met at elementary school. He claims that since Joe died trying to save them, they shouldn't let his death go to waste. Joe then gets on top of their seat again to try to make it to the support tower. This time, the icicles have melted, making it easy for him to move forward. However, he steps on the seat, and a screw of the bolt holding the chair to the cable becomes dangerously loose, making the chair rock. He somehow manages to get to the other chair, but his palms are bloodied because of the cable. Joe still doesn't give up and climbs up to the support tower while a single wolf awaits for them in the ground. Parker throws her ski pole to the ground to help Joe fight the wolf when he reaches there. He then finally climbs down, only to be attacked by the animal. However, he gets his hands on the pole and manages to get it off him. He quickly puts on the snowboard and skis down the mountain. Right behind, a pack of wolves follows him. Parker asks him to be careful as he disappears into the mountain. Now she is alone in the cold, waiting for Joe to return with help. However, hours pass by, but Joe doesn't really come back. Parker knows that the wolves must have gotten to him, but she still hopes for his safety. She stays there till the following morning, but he doesn't return. Parker then moves around the seat, making the boat move more aggressively. Eventually, the seat falls to the ground and lands right on top of her legs, breaking them. Parker composes herself and crawls downhill on the snow. After a while, she comes across the horrifying scene of Joe's remains. Before she can react, Parker notices a wolf in the front. But since the creature is full after devouring Joe, it doesn't attack her. Parker somehow makes it to the side of the road and lies there waiting for help. Just lays there waiting for help. Eventually, a person brings her in their car and drives away. If you have received value in this video, I believe you know what to do. I thank you for your time and I thank you for listening. I believe this movie was pretty cool. It does have a bad and sad ending, but I thank you for your time and I thank you for listening.